So I just uploaded my comparison video between the Little Nightmares 2 Standard Edition and the new Enhanced Edition. Already quite a few people seem quite confused. A lot of people haven't heard of it, a lot of people don't know what it is, so I thought I would make a video just to quickly explain it and give you the details, because the only way to find out this information these days is to be on Twitter, and if you're like me and absolutely hate Twitter, then it can be quite difficult to get the current news. So what is it? What is the Enhanced Edition? Well, the Enhanced Edition is a new 4K version of the game, and it is free to anybody who already owns Little Nightmares 2 on PC, PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S. Now, if you buy Little Nightmares 2 on any of those platforms going forward, you will also get the Enhanced Edition for free as part of the package. So what is it? Essentially, it's a new 4K version of the game, well, up to 4K version of the game, should I say, and it also has ray tracing as well, and it has some additional features in there that we'll go through in a minute. But it's pretty good, and it's completely free. Like I say, if you already own Little Nightmares 2, you don't have to pay anything else. And also, you can switch between the two modes at any time, so it's not like if you download the Enhanced Edition, you can't play the original edition if you don't like that edition. You can choose at any time. If you're on PC, you just choose on launch which edition you want, and if you're on console, there's different ways that you do it that I'm not going to go into. But essentially, I managed to test it, and it is an improvement. It is an improvement. We'll go through the exact improvements in just a moment, but it does look better at the cost of performance. So let's jump into the article. If you go to Bandai Namco's website, there is an article here posted today about the new edition, and they talk about how over 2 million people have played the game, which is fantastic, by the way, because the game is absolutely amazing. And they go on to say that they have now released the Enhanced Edition as a reward, I guess. They didn't have to do it, but they did it. So what does this new edition do? This update for Little Nightmares 2 has 4 features that will surround you with the sights and sounds of the Pale City like never before. Allow us to elaborate, please do. So ray traced reflections. So they say lets you see live reflections in shiny surfaces throughout the game, like the cold damp tiles of the hospital wards or the dull glass of a deactivated TV. So the reflections are incredibly improved, and when I say incredibly improved, the one that I noticed, because I didn't play the whole game through to test this, I played a little bit of each chapter just to kind of get a rough idea of how the new Enhanced Edition feels, and I also played the original edition as well, just so I could compare them. But in the Pale City, there's parts where it's raining and you're walking throughout the streets, and the streets are obviously quite a shiny surface. And in the base game, there is just no real reflection at all. I think there's like a tiny faint hint of a reflection, if nothing else. And in the Enhanced Edition, you can clearly see the reflection. I'll show some on the screen for you now, just so you can see the comparison. It is a noticeable improvement. You can finally see a really nice reflection. I haven't actually noticed this on things like the TVs, like it says, but I haven't looked for it yet, so I'm sure they're not lying there. So the next one is improved volumetric shadows. Add even more depth and detail to every object, and enhance how rays of light are interrupted by moving objects like the hunter ripping away at his prey in front of a boarded up workshop window, or the doctor tending his patients under a swinging ceiling lamp. That was a mouthful. Yeah. The shadows are also noticeably improved. I personally think the shadows look crisper in the Enhanced Edition. They look sharper. Now, some people might prefer the old shadows. They might prefer the shadows to be a bit softer. I personally think they both look good, but the new ones are definitely more pronounced, and you can see, for example, between somebody's arms, if there's a shadow going through there, you can see that better. And a couple of things, like the guy in the bathtub with the TV, his shadow has actually been more evened out, I guess you could say, by this new Enhanced Edition, but they do look better. The only thing I will say about it though is, if you didn't know that you were playing the Enhanced Edition, you probably wouldn't even notice. Once you start looking for them, again, they look fantastic, and you'll be like, oh yeah, they look better. But until you actually go looking for them, you probably wouldn't have noticed. But they do look good. They do look better. I don't want to insult the shadows. They do look good. Interactive particles. This is one that I didn't actually notice, but dance and swirl realistically through the air as characters move through a scene. It's so evocative that you might almost feel the need to sneeze when landing on a dusty rug in the attic, or flinch when motes of burning ash spills through a furnace vent. cheeky. Yeah, so the particles were more noticeable, and in fact in some of the scenes, especially in the final chapter in the signal tower, spoilers, the particle effects are more pronounced. You can see the particles. You know when you go through those doors where you like the weird purple doors that don't make sense, the particle effects there are just way better. But they're saying that these particles also interact with the character. I kind of want to go back and test that now, but I'm sure that they do. But the particles just do look better in a lot of scenes just naturally. And then finally we have immersive audio. So I'm not going to read it all, but essentially they're adding support for 5.1 or 7.1 speakers or headphones, which is great if you like surround sound. 5.1 is surround, I think, and 7.1, I mean, that's how many channels, right? That's how many different sound channels there are. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but yeah, if you like that kind of thing, great. I personally don't. I have Corsair headphones that have surround sound built in, and whenever I use it, it makes me feel a bit weird. I'm not really a big fan of it, but that's just a personal preference. If you like surround sound, now Little Nightmares 2 has surround sound, and I'm going to be honest, the sound design in Little Nightmares 1 and 2 is really good. So if you like that immersive experience, I'm sure having it in surround sound is going to be great for you. And then of course you can go to 4K in Little Nightmares. Now I couldn't test 4K because I don't have a 4K monitor, and I don't think that my computer would be able to handle Little Nightmares 2 with ray tracing in 4K anyway, because as we'll get onto in a minute, I was having performance drops at 1080p. So we'll get onto that in just a moment. But if you play on console, you'll have the ability to choose 2 different modes, which is good. More options and modes are always a good thing. But to customize your gameplay, so you can either choose beauty mode, which will run the game at 30 frames per second at 4K resolution. So if you really like graphics, you can run the game if you don't care about frame rates. And performance mode, on the other hand, will lock the gameplay at 60 frames per second, which is the bare minimum for me. And it will have a dynamic resolution up to 4K. Now, dynamic resolution, if you don't know what that means is it will scale the resolution in real time up or down depending on essentially how much is going on and how graphically intensive the scene is. So if you're in the middle of a really high intense action scene and there's lots of things going on the screen, it will scale the resolution down to save on performance to keep you at that 60 FPS. And if, you know, the game's not really that much going on, maybe there's some background stuff, and the game's running really smoothly, it will increase the resolution as high as it can go without breaking 60 FPS. So as long as that works, dynamic resolution is actually a really good thing for people who like, you know, solid frame rates, which I do. However, dynamic resolutions in any game, from my experience, don't tend to really give you the maximum that they say that they will. So when it says dynamic resolution up to 4K, it's not going to be at 4K very much, if at all. That's just from my experience. Your mileage may vary, I guess. But yeah, so this is great if you don't mind games at 30 FPS, which I personally cannot stand in 2021, games at 30 FPS, unless it's a specific like indie 2D game or something. I'd rather play at 720p 60 FPS plus. That's just me. But you have the choice, which console people don't usually get. Console people, the console peasants, but people on console don't usually get that kind of choice, which is good to see that people are getting those kind of choices now. And of course, if you're on PC, you can change your options independently. Now, I want to just quickly touch on this. So my computer I have a 2080 Ti, I have an i9 processor, and I have 64 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I know I've got a 2080, I haven't got a 30 series. I still feel like my PC is higher than the average person's PC. And I was running Little Nightmares 2 Enhanced at 1080p, 144 frames per second, and with ray tracing at medium. I couldn't turn it any higher than medium, because if I did, my frames were dropping from 144 to 70 or even below in certain scenes. Now, you might think, well, 70 frames per second sounds fine, that's no problem. But when you drop from 144 down to 70, that big massive drop like that, it causes like stuttering, and it's a really jarring experience. It's not smooth at all. So even though 60 is a good baseline, it has to be a smooth 60. It's the same thing with 144. Ideally, you want to stay at 144 the entire time. Now, like I say, I put it down onto medium. I was still getting stuttering even at medium. It wasn't common, but the developers have already admitted that there's still work to be done on this edition. They know that AMD's having problems with certain AMD cards, and they're looking into it. So maybe this is something they'll fix. I hope that they do, because I do feel like my PC should be able to run it at 1080p without stuttering, but there we go. I guess the ray tracing is just too powerful. But yeah, that's it. That's the new edition. It's super easy. These are the ways that you get it if you're on PlayStation 5 or Xbox. I'm not really a console person anymore. I don't really know. But if you're on PC, you should have had a 5 GB update today. So if you're just watching this video and you haven't checked yet, you should already have an update. You do that 5 GB update, and then the next time you launch the game, it will say, do you want to play it standard or do you want to play the enhanced edition? And your save file goes across the both as well. So if you start playing the enhanced and you go, actually, I can't really run it, you can just go back to the standard, no problem. And the same thing, if you're playing through standard, maybe you get a new PC, you can switch to enhanced. It's fine. That's it. This is the enhanced edition. I hope you give it a go. I hope you check it out, enjoy it. If you haven't played Little Nightmares 2 yet, now might be a good time to jump in. And I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a DLC announcement today, but you never know. You never know. There we go. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a like, let me know down in the comments below, and consider subscribing. I do a lot of horror games on this channel, a lot of Little Nightmares content, but also other horror games. We explore them, we explain them, and we expand upon them. So if any of that sounds cool, consider giving me a sub. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.